and we actually take a step back and observe the rules and things that we're just holding on to because we insist that they have to be done a certain way or these things have to be true, we get so much power back. And why do we get our power back? We get our power back because we realize that even on the days that we don't got it, we actually do got it. Because that's just a part of the human experience. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, the same way the scale fluctuates. We've heard that messaging before, that it's not always going to be this beautiful linear line on a perfect diagonal dropping, even though you're quote unquote doing all of the right things and really staying locked in. And that's perfect exactly the way it is.
Let's link up with Krysta on the Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's up, Fix listeners? Welcome back to our latest episode of the Fix podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and I have a surprise for you guys today. I have no message. Yes, you heard that right. The message of today's podcast is that there is no message. And no, I'm not ending the recording within the first 60 seconds or whatever this timestamp currently says, not even 50 seconds. But I want you to sit with that for a second and think about this idea of inspiration. Week after week, people ask me, my friends even ask me, especially fellow fitness and nutrition coaches who listen to this, how do you come up with ideas for your content, for your podcast episodes? And a lot of times I just turn this camera on and let it go. And I have conversations that I find inspiration from with speaking to clients, with speaking to friends in the industry, with thinking through past experiences that I've had and how I've grown from them, from talking to my own mentors. Of course, you can constantly pull inspiration from lots of places. But you know what I think we really need to talk about? We need to talk about and be clear about what it feels like when we just don't have any inspiration. And I've been sitting with this idea for a couple of days for those of you out there who also are on the Fix email list. And if you're not, you are totally missing out. But I actually wrote this email on Friday and of this past week, if you're listening to this episode the day that it drops. And I'm going to walk you through my morning that I had on Friday. And what I want you to think about is, in me sharing this with you, I want you to think about a time when you just feel stuck and how that is unfortunately a mode that we can get so caught up in that ultimately leads to inaction. So here's how my day went. Last Friday, I woke up a little later than I planned. I didn't get to bed as early as I wanted to. I actually don't even remember at this point, but I just felt like I needed to hit snooze on my alarm a couple of times and I was exhausted, getting close to that time of the month. So things were making sense. I woke up and I'm like, it's Friday. I love writing the weekly newsletter because it's kind of my ritual. Every Friday morning, I wake up, pour myself a cup of coffee. Of course, I throw my Shabani creamer in there and I sit down and I kind of reflect on the client conversations I had over the course of the week, anything that's happened in my own personal life, where I'm at in my own fitness journey. And then I think, what might somebody who reads this email find helpful today? And that's really always the question I ask myself. How can I potentially serve other people with this information? What perspective might I have? And I do the same thing for recording these podcasts too, that could possibly help even just one person today. And on Fridays in particular, I always think about how could this help this person going into the weekend, when notoriously the weekend is the time that so many of us have a set of behaviors that doesn't always exactly align with the goals that we have when it comes to our fat loss. So honestly, I put a lot of pressure on myself in delivering that message because I want it to be consistent and I want to feel like I always have something to say. And this Friday in particular, I'm sitting there and I am staring at my computer saying to myself, why do I have such writer's block? I just don't know what I want to talk about this week. Specifically, I don't know what I have to share that is the most impactful. And running a business online, there is also a lot of pressure for feeling like you always have to post content and you just have to be super consistent with everything, because that's what everyone says is like the secret to growing your social media following or the secret to growing your coaching business is just to consistently show up. Well, what about the days when we don't feel like showing up? What about the fact that you, the listener of this podcast, also has days where you don't feel like showing up either? Why don't we talk more about that? And when that did finally dawn on me, I realized it's the perfect message. Having nothing to say is actually so perfect. But what I want to share with you all today in this podcast episode is how the heck did I arrive at the fact that the inspiration is there's no inspiration sometimes? And I did that by changing my environment. And that's when I started to reflect on the fact that we do so many things that we think we should do, that we have to do. And I've actually done a podcast episode on this before that I'll link down in the show notes. Just this idea of like getting rid of the chains of living your life based on shoulds and have tos versus what you want to do and getting clear on what you want to do. But that's another conversation. So bringing it back, I'm sitting there, I'm staring at my computer. And I'm like, I have no idea what I possibly want to say. But here's the thing I did instead. In the past, I would have sat there and probably started scrolling on my phone, thinking that if I looked at other content, it would somehow give me some, spark for an idea. And then I was like, this is not going to serve me. It's a beautiful morning. It's a Friday. I'm ready for the weekend and I need to get out of the house. So I didn't finish that cup of coffee that I poured for myself. And I was like, let me just go get some coffee. Let me go out. Let me venture to a new coffee shop that's been on my list, a place that I wanted to try. And that small break in my usual routine was exactly what I needed to come to this realization that the message is there's no message. The inspiration for you in your own fitness journey, in your own effort of trying to lose weight, of trying to lose the body fat, of trying to change your life, is that sometimes you just don't got it. And we can't always have it all of the time. And unfortunately, because of what we do see online and because we forget that the information we're seeing online is information that people choose in a often very calculated way to share with you for a specific reason, we have this perception that that's their reality all the time. And it's not. So this is one of those episodes where I want you to hear yourself in me and know that I think, especially in the month of January, we can feel that excitement, just ready to go for the new year, all that sort of stuff. And then February rolls around. And even though it's the quick month, we feel like we're in a little bit of a slump. And I just had this one day because of this one event of being like, I can't write this email, that I wanted my entire week to feel like it was a failure. And that's such a crappy mindset to be in. It really is, because it's actually not true. When I got in my car, I'm driving to this coffee shop. I started thinking to myself, what are some of the tools I have in my back pocket? First one was changing my environment. Maybe if I go somewhere else, I have that break in my routine, something looks different about my day. That's where I'm going to get that idea. And that was part of it. The second half, though, was I created space for myself to think without the pressure of actually thinking about something. Instead of distracting myself with scrolling my phone and looking at other people's ideas, that drive in the car where I had the chance to just sit with myself in silence, I don't even think I played any music on the way there. That's when I started observing some of my thoughts. And for as much as I was saying to myself, oh my gosh, I have to write this email, I also didn't technically have to write it, right? I told myself that story. But it's important to me that I provide information on a regular basis that could help, like I said, just that one person. So I created this pressure, I created this narrative that I needed to go ahead and actually send this email. And that's the perfect parallel to what so many of us do when we get stuck in our all or nothing mindset, inside of our fitness journeys. How much better might your relationship to training and your relationship to food might be if you just said to yourself, hey, I don't really have that mojo that I want to have today. So therefore, instead of hitting the 45-minute workout that I planned, that I'm following, and whatever it is, you don't have to be a part of a program or anything, but whatever you set out to do, you tell yourself most of the time, well, if I can't do it that exact way, I'm just not going to do it at all. And that's where you get super stuck. Even as I'm recording this podcast episode right now, I planned to record this podcast episode like 2 days ago. I wanted to make sure that I had a certain outfit on, my makeup was done, all these things. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't even matter, because what matters is the actual message that's being delivered itself. And the energy behind that message matters way more than how I look. And what I really need to focus on is how I feel in delivering this information, and not forcing it at a certain time just because I have to meet this specific deadline, which I still do, because got to get this episode to you guys on Thursdays every single week. But the amount of resistance that we feel by forcing ourselves to think that we always have to be excited about something or inspired by something is very much contributing to why you may be out there focusing on your fitness and nutrition in different spurts. It's not always going to feel fun, and it's not always going to feel super glamorous. And the periods where the scale seems super stuck, or you feel like you're just going through the motions, I want to challenge you in this conversation today to recognize that those are the ones that are actually the most important. I love celebrating the wins. I could sit here and tell you, think about all the things that are going right for you. I just said that a couple minutes ago in saying, I started telling myself that just because I couldn't write this one email, it was going to ruin my whole day and I was going to have a bad week. Our brains are very powerful in that way. But at the same time, I got so much more out of reflecting on that resistance than I would have if I just sat there and said to myself, oh, it's okay. This good thing happened, and this good thing happened, and this good thing happened. And really leaned into this fact of like, well, why do I feel this way right now? Well, it's because I'm telling myself the story that I should have woken up earlier. And if I had woken up earlier, then I would have been able to write the email faster. And if I wrote the email faster, then I would have been able to go handle whatever other responsibility I wanted to get done before the weekend hit. And I'm realizing that that doesn't really matter, because I know whatever I need to get done will get done. And you need to know that on those days where you feel like this isn't it, the 15 minutes that you may spend choosing to go for a walk instead of trying to insist that you get something done on your to-do list done are 15 minutes such better spent than what would have happened if you sat there. And let's be honest, I'm not above it. You probably would have scrolled on your phone just like I was saying. And that task that you had resistance to, that task that you felt stuck in, would have taken you 30 minutes when it could have only taken you 15. And now you won because you got it done in 15 minutes and you moved your body. And ideally from moving your body, you felt a whole lot better. This is where, when we start to dissect our perspective on these stories that we're telling ourselves, we actually take a step back and observe the rules and things that we're just holding on to because we insist that they have to be done a certain way or these things have to be true, we get so much power back. And why do we get our power back? We get our power back because we realize that even on the days that we don't got it, we actually do got it. Because that's just a part of the human experience. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, the same way the scale fluctuates. And you've heard that messaging before, that it's not always going to be this beautiful linear line on a perfect diagonal dropping, even though you're quote unquote doing all of the right things and really staying locked in. And that's perfect exactly the way it is. And that's totally cool. But pressure that we feel to think that if it's all or nothing, the nothing should win out every single time is the exact reason why you're not getting to where you want to go. So on the days when you just feel like you don't got it, The worst thing you could do is throw in the towel and be like, yeah, just screw it. The whole, popping your tires analogy. It's probably been a while since I said this on one of these episodes, but I love when someone tells me, oh, my morning didn't go as planned, so therefore I just let the rest of the day kind of go to shit. It actually makes no sense. And here's why. If you were on the side of the road and you had a flat tire, would you go ahead and pop the other 3 tires? No, because how is that going to get you home? You call AAA or you call roadside assistance and you get the donut put on your car so that you can in fact get home. And in that scenario, we're totally logical about it, right? You say that, and if you're listening to this, it can kind of make you laugh because you're like, oh yeah, well, duh, no shit. Of course I'm going to think about it that way. And yeah, when it comes to our fitness and our nutrition, if we're so prescriptive, especially for all of you out there who are super busy, I know you can resonate with this. You tell yourself this story that, okay, I was supposed to do this thing at this exact time, and then something got moved, and this meeting has to be here, and then I have to go do this thing for my kid or whatever your other responsibility is. And what's the first thing that you let go? You don't go to the gym. You skip that meal prep, even if it can be accomplished really quick in less than 5 minutes. And now here you are all of a sudden at the end of the day asking yourself, why did I lose control of this day? Because you didn't take the time to make the space for yourself, even if it's just a couple minutes. Maybe it doesn't have to be you getting in the car and driving all the way to the coffee shop. But for me, I knew to be honest, I actually didn't even have the time to do that because like I said, the email got out later as a result and I had other meetings and I wanted to get the email out first thing in the morning because I said to myself, oh, well, that's when most people are going to be checking their emails on Fridays. But does that really matter? No, it doesn't matter, because if we go back to the sentiment that all I wanted to accomplish was for one person to feel impacted by that message, the time that it lands in your inbox, not really the end of the world. The same idea applies to you getting in a 25-minute workout instead of an hour. The same idea applies to you throwing together some canned tuna or rolled up turkey and calling that your lunch. Not sexy, not glamorous, but over time, those small decisions start to add up to getting you closer to the results that you actually want. So that's it. This might be an all-time record for the shortest FYX podcast we've done to date. And I think that's also perfect for this message. Because I did say at the beginning, the message is there is no message. And obviously I was being a little facetious with that. But just know that if you are constantly comparing yourself to people who seem like they have their fitness and nutrition on lock, I promise you they don't. There's days where they're not feeling it either. There's days where they have to play that little mental game of, yeah, today's the day that I have to get XYZ done and also go to the gym and also meal prep and also fit in all these other responsibilities. That's part of life. And for those of you who listen out there who I know you are high achieving, busy people, you probably have a lot of those days because you set high standards for yourself for what you want to accomplish. And you have a high bar, and your high bar is one of your best qualities because it's actually one of the tools that you can lean into the most when it comes to being successful and prioritizing your health. But at the same time, it can also be a little bit of your Achilles heel. So on that note, if you want to learn how to live in that gray area, perfect example, I'm about to run off as soon as I hit the stop recording button on this and chug a protein shake because it's almost 2 p.m. and I'm behind on my protein for the day, but that's what's going to help me get the job done. Those are the kind of lessons and the kind of tools and the quote unquote hacks that we share inside of the Fitness Fix program. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to be a part of what real life looks like in achieving your goals, come join us, fill out that one-on-one coaching application, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. From wherever you're listening from, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you guys next week.